Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Restoring Hope with Crosswinds Counseling. I'm your host, Curtis Smith. It is great to have you with us for our second episode. As we get started tonight, I want to be sure to thank our incredible partners bringing you this show each Thursday night at 9:30. So huge thanks to Prime 47 Downtown, Shepherd Community Center, and Tesco. We could not be here without their support. Tonight, we don't want to simply thank our partners in this show. We also want to introduce you to two of them. Our corporate counseling partners are throughout Indiana and, in fact, throughout the United States. These organizations use Crosswinds Corporate Counseling to help their employees do incredible work here in Indianapolis and all over the region. And tonight, we are blessed to have two of them with us. The first guest is Scott Martin. He is the owner of Meineke Car Care Centers. Scott, thank you for being with us tonight on Restoring Hope.
That's my pleasure. Thank you.
Let's start by telling people about Meineke. You guys just opened a 9th car care center. Tell us about your organization for those that have not used your services.
Yeah, so Meineke Car Care Center is a national brand that's been around since the 70s. Started off as muffler shops. You might have remembered the name Meineke Discount Muffler.
Yeah.
Back in about the late 90s, they changed the name officially to Car Care Center. Expanding our services. What they found is guys that were doing mufflers in the early 90s started to do brakes and shocks and struts just because they were under the car, customers were asking. They officially made the pivot, I think right at 2000, 2001. And I got involved in 2007 running a shop for a friend of mine with the intention of purchasing one day. And fast forward a couple of years, I bought my first shop in 2010. Right away, his brother said, "Hey, I got a couple shops, you want to buy them?" And as he's been retiring, I've taken over some of his, and then here we are sitting at 9 locations this October. So that's how I got there.
That's pretty incredible growth. You must do great work. It's still kind of top to bottom on the car. What can people expect there at Meineke in terms of services?
Sure, about half of our transactions are oil change, and then probably volume dollar-wise is about 30% brake work, and then down through exhaust and shock struts, like I said, alignments. We do tires. We can do some heavy-duty engine repair. That really just depends on the talents of the individuals in each location. So.
Through the pandemic, has the need for car care gone up? Like, so many things are skewed. Some things are through the roof. Some things have bottomed out. Where have you seen your business over the last 18 months or so?
Everything's just on steroids.
Yeah.
So basically, middle of March of 20, the government said, "Don't drive." Well, if you know anything about car repair, if cars aren't being driven, they don't need work.
Right.
So we went about 6 weeks of pretty scary times of just wondering what was going to happen.
Yeah.
I drove around to every shop every day, just spreading calm, said it's going to be fine, we'll be fine. Sure enough, June rolls around, and people that hadn't been in their car for 3 months got in their car for the first time. And while they'd ignored a noise that they'd heard every week for a year, all of a sudden it's an issue because they weren't driving, now they're driving, they hear it. So we got slammed in June, and it's really not slowed up. So we've had a really, really successful run since post of the beginning of the pandemic.
Yeah, I don't know what the right phrase for that is, but post everybody being sick of being in their house, right?
Yeah.
Like everybody had to get back outside, and that means get in the car.
Yeah, and our like I said, our business is a factor of miles driven. Now we see people taking vacations. Last summer was no flying to Destin, but maybe driving to Michigan.
Wow.
Increase of miles driven. It's been really good for the business.
That makes sense. Scott, let's talk about how you help your employees. Because to be completely honest and transparent here, a car care center on paper is not the place that I would initially think of as a place that's truly caring for, investing into their employees. But you do that. Why do you do it, and how do you do it?
The why is because back when I was just a single shop guy, I had to get creative with some benefit packages. So once a year, we take everyone down to Holiday World. We do a Christmas party. That started at my dad would make a ham, my wife would make some sausage balls, and we'd have people over to our basement.
Okay.
We'd do goofy gift exchange. So kind of in the spirit of getting creative with some of those types of benefits. Now, I'm a pretty full business. We offer health, we offer 401k, we offer all that stuff. But in the meantime, I've got this spirit and this culture of what can I do that doesn't cost the business a ton of money, but it can be extremely helpful when needed. And it's fair for everybody. So I found in the beginning of 2019, we had about 6 or 7 of my staff come to me with either financial issues, marriage issues, or depression and anxiety, maybe some suicidal thoughts.
Wow.
I got maybe, back to back to back. And I said, you know what, when they come to me with financial issues, I'm equipped for that. I went through the Dave Ramsey program in 2007. I got myself out of debt. I got myself on the right track for financial peace. So I've been able to walk a bunch of my staff through that. I'm not equipped for the other things at all. I'm compassionate and caring, and I'll listen and I'll talk, but I just don't have the skill set. So I brought it up in my Truth at Work group, which Truth at Work is just a local organization that helps to bring God into the marketplace. And we were talking one morning. One of my friends says, "Hey, I got this contact at Crosswinds. I think maybe you should reach out to her." And I did, and I couldn't be happier. So we put a little bit of money on retainer. I told all my staff, I walked around, I drove around all my shops, and I handed out brochures. I said, "This is gonna be great for you guys." Fast forward a year, guess how many people capitalized on that?
I'm scared to guess. I want to say zero.
Zero.
Yeah.
So I met with a couple of the folks at Crosswinds and said, how can we get this involved? So we got a little creative. I said, there's a negative stigma a little bit. My staff needs it. They're not engaging. Yeah. How can we push that through? So two things. We came up with about 8 different items, whether it was family-oriented, suicide, depression, financial. I said, Scott's good at this, but if you want to talk to someone else, that's fine. But we came up with a couple positives: goal setting, family framework, to use a Northview term. What can we say that's good? So if you don't maybe have something bad in your life, but you still want to engage, here's some options. And then I said $50 to Lowe's gift card, a Lowe's gift card of $50 to anybody that engages with Crosswinds. And we broke the seal.
Wow.
So there's some engagement now, and it's been really cool. So.
That is just tremendous. So what have you seen since you broke the seal, to use your phrase, and people have started to use the services? Have you seen healthier employees, a healthier culture?
100%. Unfortunately, one of the young men that's been with me did go through a divorce and had personally thanked me for that service, to say, hey, it was hard for me, but I was able to go through it. And then he actually took his daughter as well, so they could kind of go through it together. I've had some other guys that haven't shared as much, but I know through the grapevine that they've been thankful that the service is there. It is anonymous. I don't know who they are unless they tell me.
Yeah.
So that's been kind of an interesting dichotomy there. It's like, hey, if you want the $50 gift card, I got to know. But I've had guys. One guy said, you know what? I wanted to engage with them, so I said, maybe help me quit smoking. And I said, great. How was it? He's like, they've given me great tools to quit smoking. And I go, and are you? He goes, well, no, I still smoke a pack a day. I was like, all right. So it gives me an opportunity to bring it up. So it's like
baby steps.
Hey, yeah, baby
steps.
But he's engaged, and then they talk about it with each other, which may lower that stigma for someone else to engage.
Wow.
So.
Scott, I suspect that your faith is a big part of the reason you invest back into your people the way that you do. But for other owners, for other CEOs, executive directors, for other bosses out there, what would you say to them as a reason to partner with Crosswinds Counseling, as a reason to invest into their people this way?
It's a big question.
Yeah.
I think, I can't remember. You could probably look up the quote, but it's like, people don't care about what you know until they know you care.
Right.
People aren't going to get up out of their bed every morning and come to work for someone who doesn't show that they care. So I think a big part of our employee loyalty to my 9 locations at this point is because there are mornings where they don't want to come to work, but they know without a doubt that I'm there for them. So is my general manager, my director of operations. We're in it, and we're with them, and we're shoulder to shoulder on tough days. And I think that's kind of one part of how we show that we are that. So.
Scott, that is awesome. Thank you so much for investing into people that way, and thank you so much for joining us here tonight on Restoring Hope. It's great to meet you.
Yeah,
thanks for being with us.
My pleasure.
All right, Scott Martin from Meineke Car Care Centers. We'll be right back.
Shepherd works with both the first and second generation to break the cycle of poverty. It's a 2-gen approach to say we want to help the parents and the students to help them have the tools for them to break the cycle of poverty.
You know, it's easy to think programs make a difference, but we know from 35 years of experience, relationships is effective.
In this world, we don't need more programs. We need to know that more people care for us.
Welcome back to Restoring Hope with Crosswinds Counseling. I'm Curtis Smith. Each week we will take a few minutes to introduce you to a Crosswinds Counseling counselor. And tonight, Katie Quigley joins us to talk about something we all deal with at some point in our lives, trauma.
Hello, my name is Katie Quigley. I'm one of the counselors here at Crosswinds. I really have a heart and a passion for working with people who have experienced trauma in their past. My approach to therapy, especially when working with individuals with trauma, is this idea of having one foot in the past, one foot in the present, and our eyes towards the future. And this concept is based off the ability for us to kind of sit in our past and our trauma for a minute, and where we may not cognitively understand what's happening, we know that our body holds on to it. And there's a saying that says our body keeps the score. And so as we have one foot and ability to step back into the past, we also stay firmly grounded in the present as well. And then our eyes are always focused towards the future, because this idea that there's always hope for our future. There's always an ability for redemption, an ability for restoration and for healing. One therapeutic approach that I tend to use when working with trauma is something called EMDR. EMDR works by knowing the concept that we have this emotional side of our brain and this logical side of our brain. And when we go through something traumatic, the emotional side tends to go into the forefront while our logical side tends to shut down. And what we end up doing is we end up making all our decisions based off this emotional side of our brain. So EMDR does two things. It helps desensitize that emotion, make it less distressing, and then it also connects to our kind of logical side of our brain so that we're able to look back on that event and think on it in a different way. If you feel like you are struggling with something that traumatic happened to you in the past, I think that counseling is a wonderful option for you. I've had the pleasure to sit with many, many people and help them walk through this journey, and there's so much hope and there's such an ability for healing and restoration.
Thank you, Katie. It is so important to navigate trauma well. Our next guest knows all about helping people through traumatic events. Life Centers has been around for nearly 40 years, and they have spent the past 4 decades providing compassionate care to women making pregnancy-related decisions in Central Indiana. Tonight, we are blessed to have Tom Chevlot, the Executive Director of Life Centers, here with us. Tom, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
I'm a little upset, though, that you won the sock contest right off the bat.
Right on.
I normally get away with having the craziest socks, but I don't know.
I don't know. Well, I got the memo.
I think, yeah, you obviously did. Well done. On a much more serious topic, Tom, let's talk about Life Centers and the work that you do, again, for nearly 40 years here in Central Indiana. You personally for the last 8 years or so. Give us an overview. Tell us a little bit about Life Centers.
Sure. We've been around, as you say, for 40 years. We started off as just a single call center, and then we've now grown to having we're having 6 centers now, 4 in Marion County. We have 1 in Lebanon, and then 1 in Noblesville or Hamilton County area.
When you have growth like that, there's a positive and a negative to that. It's great to have growth, and it's tremendous to help more people, but the negative side of that is that means more people need help.
That's right.
And I assume you've seen a tremendous rise in that need.
We have, and I'm glad that we're able to fill that gap. I would rather our clients come see us than maybe some other options that may not be as compassionate as we are. So, we enjoy standing in that gap and being able to help. Gosh, in 2020, we helped over 8,900 women and their children. Wow. That came into our centers for a number of reasons.
And Tom, what does that look like? I assume it can look like a myriad of different things, but typically, how does it go when a woman comes and connects with Life Centers?
Yeah, so 50% of our clients or more are referred to us, which tells me that we're doing a good job, because if we weren't having that high of a referral rate, that would be of a concern. And so when that girl that's at school finds herself in a situation where she might need some help, or she might think she's pregnant, or she's having trouble at home with maybe her newborn, she's then talking to her friend down the street or in school, and that friend says, hey, go see Life Centers, or go see the pregnancy center down at 10th and Arlington. And so when she comes in, depending on what she's there for, we meet her with open arms, we meet her with the smile, we meet her with no judgment, and we just find out what brought you in today. And from there, we triage to help her in the issues that she came in for.
Because everybody's story is unique, I assume you see stories just all over the map. So helping someone take that next step or two can look like many different things. What does that typically look like? How do you guys dive into that work of crafting something that's unique for someone's personal journey?
Yeah, so the very first thing we do is when they come in, she comes in, we hand her a form, and she fills out an intake form. And from there, that kind of gives us a roadmap of what brought her in, and then what are some of the things that she's expecting. And then we ask some other questions on there that help us to kind of discern, okay, when we bring her back in the counseling room, we're then able to pinpoint and narrow in on what brought her in there, rather than spend a bunch of time in the counseling room and trying to uncover that. So our questions are tailored about what brought you in, what are some of your expectations, and then what are you looking for when you leave your, how best can we help you? And so from there, the peer counselor will talk with her, discern her needs, and then from there, we'll then get her plugged in to being able to help her what she came in for.
The name of this show is Restoring Hope. I assume you're in the same business, that many times you find what you're really doing is instilling, restoring hope to these young women.
It is, and one of the things that we started several years ago is at the very end of the form, after the counseling session is done, we have an open-ended question: what was memorable about your visit here? And more often than not is, I feel blessed and I'm glad I came. Because she often comes in with a heavy heart, she comes in with a heavy burden, she feels lost, she feels that she can't turn anywhere outside of Life Center, she can't turn to her neighbors or friends, sometimes her church, because she's embarrassed. But when she comes into us, she walks out and says, I'm glad I made this decision to come in.
Can you even put into words how gratifying those moments are?
No. And then to be able to see her come back, just as an example, if she comes in and she's unsure about, if I'm pregnant, what am I going to do? But then after that session, and then she comes back, and then she brings her newborn baby into the center and says, I want to introduce you to my son. I want to introduce you to my little baby girl. And then from there, we continue with her. For 2 more years. We stay with her and help her with maternity needs, whether that's diaper, wipes, formula, clothing, but additional counseling sessions. And so we meet with her to just make sure that we're staying tethered to her and building that long-term relationship. So therefore, that trust is high, so that when she goes out in the neighborhood, she's then telling her friends that this is the place to go.
Wow. So women walk in sometimes without hope. They walk out with an amazing story.
Yep.
And Tom, you have an interesting story because this has not been your life's work.
No.
As I mentioned, you've been at it for about 8 years, but prior to that, you had a full career in something completely unrelated. How did God move you into this space?
So I'll try to give that in a Cliff Note version. I spent over 20 years with AT&T, mostly in their wireless division when wireless was very new. Held a number of senior roles, and it was just at a dinner that there was a person at the table that I said, hey, I've got this letter in the mail from Life Centers that the CEO is not there. And my wife and I have been supporters of Life Centers for a long time. And I just didn't know. And the person at the table was an employee of Life Centers, which I kind of knew, which is why I asked. And she said, Tom, God's calling you to this ministry.
Wow.
Well, I don't come from a world where I hear that a lot. I usually get told, how come you didn't meet your quarterly numbers?
Right.
And so that was the seed that got planted, and then God made me a little bit more uncomfortable in the corporate world, and 8 months later, the board offered me the position to come over, and I haven't looked back.
Tom, there may be somebody watching our show tonight who finds themselves in the midst of that, hearing God's voice, feeling called out of something that might feel unnatural or out of your comfort zone. What advice would you give to somebody who maybe is thinking through that, starting to hear God's promptings in their lives?
Yeah, that's a great question. I get asked about my transition, but that's a really good question. Is listen to that calling. It's going to be a little fearful.
Yeah. It's
going to be a little bit awkward. It's going to be a little challenging, but just keep tethered to that and just keep on your knees and God will show you. But as I said, I've not looked back. And when you hear that calling, don't be like Job or Jonah. Go to Nineveh.
Wow, great advice there. Tom, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for heeding God's call in your life and making the difference in so many lives because of that.
Thank you. Appreciate your time.
Tonight, we have had the pleasure of chatting with Scott Martin and now Tom Chevlot, a couple of people who are partnering with Crosswinds Counseling, providing hope to Central Indiana. And we know that you might be in a position where you could utilize the corporate counseling services of Crosswinds Counseling. Nearly 50 companies all over the United States are doing the exact same thing. And if you would like to learn more about how your organization can become part of the Crosswinds Counseling family of corporate counseling partners, here's the website to visit. You see it right now on your screen, crosswindscounseling.org/CCC. We'll be right back.
In the heart of downtown Indy, at the corner of Pennsylvania and Maryland Streets, it's Prime 47, the city's only independent, locally owned and operated steakhouse, offering gourmet dishes, the highest quality steaks, fresh seafood, and an extensive wine list. Prime 47 specializes in large parties and events. So, whether it's dinner for 2 or 200, it's prime time you visit Prime 47, Indy's Steakhouse, for the finest in dining.
Welcome back. Each week here on Restoring Hope, we will carve out a few minutes to talk about the most important word in the title of our show, hope. It's a very easy thing to go through this life and notice the lack of hope and to see the devastating impact on people who are not living with hope. At Crosswinds Counseling, hope is central to who we are, and not just hope in this temporary world, but because of the eternal hope we find in Jesus Christ. It's His love and His hope that we strive to pass on to others. Tonight, we introduce you to Gordon Springer, one of the executives at Crosswinds Counseling. He takes a look at the concept of having hope in a fallen world and the challenges that face us right now as the COVID-19 pandemic continues.
Hi everyone, my name is Gordon Haynes. I'm a member of the executive team for Crosswinds, responsible for culture and faith for the organization. I'm here today to talk for a few minutes about hope and the importance of hope in society. In November of 2019, the Brookings Institute, a Washington, D.C. think tank, released a report talking about the fact that the United States is the only wealthy nation in the world where life expectancy for adults is getting shorter, not longer. The basis of this study said that because of an increase in suicides, drug overdoses, and alcohol-related diseases, we were seeing more deaths earlier in life for everyone in the United States. That is really a sad statement. The phrase they used, they called these deaths of despair. So basically, people are losing hope. What a sad statement for our society. Since that report was released, COVID happened. And as a society, we focused on keeping each and every one of ourselves physically safe and physically healthy from the disease of COVID. But what we didn't account for was the impacts on mental health for that disease. And what we're seeing is an explosion in these so-called deaths of despair. At Crosswinds, our focus is to change hearts and bring hope to individuals, families, and communities. We believe that with a combination of professional help and a strong faith in our Lord Jesus Christ, we can change society, we can change our nation, and we can bring hope to everyone in the U.S. And that is so important. So not only is that just a belief on our part, it's confirmed by studies by think tanks in Washington, D.C. What a deal. So what I want to talk about is the fact that if you are someone suffering from despair, if you believe that there is no hope, I want to encourage you to get professional help with an organization like Crosswinds or someone else. And I also want to encourage you to find faith in Jesus Christ. In Deuteronomy chapter 31, verse 6, the Bible says, God encourages us to be strong and courageous. Do not be terrified, for the Lord God goes with you. He will never forsake you. I truly believe that, and I truly hope that if you're in despair today, you will find hope.
Tonight, you've met people who benefit from relationship with Crosswinds Counseling, and you've heard about the opportunity counselors have to impact the lives of people right here in our community. Perhaps as you hear these things, you think you or someone you know would be a great fit for the Crosswinds Counseling family. The need for mental health services is extremely high, and the need for mental health providers is equally high. If you are a counselor, therapist, or mental health provider, and you would like to pursue a career with Crosswinds Counseling, we are looking for great men and women to pour into the lives of people and make a real difference. You can visit this website, crosswindscounseling.org/careers, to see the career opportunities at Crosswinds. If you know of people who are looking for work in this field, please let them know that Crosswinds Counseling is looking for them. Right now, we need people to join us in this impactful work of bringing hope to people. We'll be right back after a short message from our partners.
Shepherd works with both the first and second generation to break the cycle of poverty. It's a two-gen approach to say we want to help the parents and the students to help them have the tools for them to break the cycle of poverty.
You know, it's easy to think programs make a difference, but we know from 35 years of experience, relationships is effective.
In this world, we don't need more programs. We need to know that more people care for us.
Welcome back, and thank you for joining us tonight for our second episode of Restoring Hope with Crosswinds Counseling. We're going to be back each Thursday evening at 9:30, and next week we have the unique opportunity to sit down with Indiana Lieutenant Governor Suzanne Crouch as she shares her passion for making an impact on the mental health of Hoosiers. Thanks again for joining us tonight. We'll see you right here next Thursday at 9:30 on WHMB TV. And a huge thank you to our partners once again, Shepherd Community Center, Prime 47 Downtown, and Tesco. We'll see you next Thursday night. Have a safe night. Be blessed. Good night.